after midnight in the alleys of McCook. So it's just past midnight now, so I'll tell you some midnight plus stories in the alleys of McCook. For 19 years I worked at the bakery late night, coming in at midnight or what have you. And a few of the tools that I learned over the years that you never are without is a good flashlight, without question a good one. And of course it never hurts to have your blade. And of course to play with it or whatever you would need to do, give you a little bit of playroom. But needless to say, we're going to talk tonight about some of the crazy stories I've seen in this alley. One of them, I came driving up one night. Now of course I saw a few drug deals in my time. You ignore them because they ignore you. Or some ladies of the evening were servicing gentlemen in the back for a while before they set up police cameras around. But one night I come driving up the alley with a young couple up the street here. They were in the alley, and most of the couples that are getting to know each other in the alley are usually in the shadows, but these two were under a street light. I thought that was a bit odd, and so okay, fine. As I pulled in, I didn't try to be peeping Tom, but I took the second look and looked up there, and there was a young man and young woman, and it wasn't that big a deal. She had most of her clothes still on. But what I hadn't seen the first time, I saw the second time, and it shocked me to no end. For about 3 feet away from them, there was a man with a digital camera filming what those two were doing. As I said, there are all sorts of crazies out there in the world. And I would also then go into one other story. I had a friar come in late night, and boy, she almost ran in the building. I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "There's two men out there and they have knives." I said, "Okay, well, I'm ready to leave. I'll lock the door and I'll go check them out before I leave." And as I walked out, though, they came right up to me. A couple of young men in trench coats. And as they got to me, they said, "Did you see a black man and a white man come walking down the alley?" They used the N-word. That never impresses me when they have to use the N-word. And I said, "No, I didn't see a black man and a white man come through here." And I said, "What do you want them for?" And they said, "Well, they tried to break into his girlfriend's house." And with that, he pulled out from under his trench coat a butcher knife. And he said, "We're going to get him." And I said, "Well, that's a great idea, but why don't you just call the cops? Let them handle it." And they said they did call the police, but the police couldn't do anything unless they broke clear into the house. Attempting to break in is not against law, I guess, at least in McCook. Moving right along, so I then said, you know, you got to think twice of what you're doing. They said, "Oh, we're going to get them." And I said, "Well, okay." But I said, "Yeah, now again, that's still a great idea, but what happens if those two have a gun?" Their necks snapped around, they looked at each other, telling me that neither one was rocket scientists. And I said to them, you better think twice about, you know, trying something like that, because that just gives them an excuse to pull a gun and shoot both of you. I said, "You're a lot smarter is to go back home with your girlfriend for the night, and then tomorrow get you a good lock and one of them wooden things or a stake deal onto the doorknob itself. Wouldn't hurt to get some extra double locks on the windows, or they have that kind of stuff. Get you a tear gas for her if she doesn't want a firearm. You know, if nothing else, and a good phone with a 911 speed dial." And I said, that's the safest way to do that. And so they left, but needless to say, you know, there's crazies out there, and the alley seems to draw them. And if you really want to see the crazies in McCook or anywhere else, I would bet, full moon brings them out. I kid you not. This is McCook's Mr. Bill. I hope you enjoyed this little video.